Boom. We are alive, ladies and gentlemen. This is Tia with the Arcane Bear. We're going to go over a little bit of a morning coffee and crypto session. We might do these more often. We may even start to include a few people just to kind of have roundtable discussions from other like-minded individuals to join us as well. It's kind of a new chance to jump in here. So what I would like to do is just keep it simple today. I want to go over a few things I thought was valuable here. Let's start with a little bit of data. Bam, there you go. You should now be able to see our glass node data. This is a chart that shows the number of addresses with Bitcoin over 1,000. Now, probably should have looked at this a little sooner, but we actually see that a large amount of these allocations have been distributing since February, right? Now, we've gone over Glassnode's data, which has been reducing their holdings by around 100 Bitcoin a day. And effectively, as we went over about 5 episodes, I sold some Bitcoin at around $58,000 as well, just to make sure, as I've mentioned in the past, my main goal is to always afford to cover the next 3 to 5 years of business operations in liquid capital. And that's been kind of a mindset of mine since 2011 when I started my first business. We were doing like $60,000 a month back in 2011. And I got used to big like explosion years and then like mellow 2 to 3 years afterwards. So I just got used to kind of having this function in all of my projects actually, just to make sure I'm managing business. So as you can see, we actually saw a large distribution event take place on May 5th. So if we go to our charts here, May 5th was over the last few days. Let's actually clean this chart up a little bit here because it's quite noisy, and we try to stay away from the noisy looking charts. Okay, so yes, bam. Let's put the chart back on. So we've been following this rising gradient bottom. It looks like we got a test of that bottom now. Again, a lot of people are feeling bearish. I disagree with this sentiment. For a few reasons. We'll go over that. Let's start by going over that from this side here. So this is an editorial from Drunken Miller and Planeteer, Tom Brady, and Mark Zuckerberg's donkey. I'd argue in the last 24 hours has actually been exponentially bullish for Bitcoin. Drunken Miller was careful not to specify to an asset, but articulated that the central bankers have now created a problem for crypto to solve. Previously had critiqued this as well. And one of the things I thought that was important was to look at these companies that are adding Bitcoin to their balance sheet still to this day as well. So Planeteer expects to bring in $360 million in revenue in the second quarter alone. So these are big players, right? These are not like, oh, I'm a little YouTuber, which I'm calling myself. Like, I'm going to move the price of these. No, these guys have acquisition plans that are fairly well thought out. So let's just kind of look at what Planeteer is. The maker of software analytics tools, not too dissimilar to MicroStrategies. They're bringing in $300 million per quarter on average. Co-founded in 2013 or 2003 by Peter Thiel and Joe Lonsdale, CEO Alex Karp and others, Planeteer has built this business largely on lucrative government deals for data analytics software. The company said its revenue hit 208 million, or just the government revenue hit 208 million, and around 133 million in commercial revenue. So this was a fun little phone call they had. In its fourth quarter report, the company said its average came to around 7.2 million, and now this part here. Where was it? Just scroll down here. Oh yeah, this next cycle here. So Planeteer added their company's earnings call, which is just recently here on May 11th. That it was considering adding Bitcoin to its balance sheet, saying the cryptocurrency was definitely on the table. It also accepts Bitcoin as a form of payment. So the company went public last September through a direct listing on the New York Stock Exchange and opened at around $10 per share. The initial Planeteer gave market of around $16.5 billion. Since then, it's shot up in value to around $30.4 billion on Monday close. So this is a nice little blog by FTX. It says, I don't like to think about Bitcoin or other assets as I see them entirely separate trades. One is digital gold and the other are productive fintech layers. What I would say is that Bitcoin is a proven and known quality, has a much clearer regulatory definition, and is unlikely to fail. The rest of the ecosystem is more iterative, so I'd be careful to let your Bitcoin allocation fall too low. Well, the retail and crypto fund community allocations, BTC, have fallen dramatically over the last little while through much of its price effects on the actual switching. My guesstimation, but I'd say for at least retail is around 15% Bitcoin allocation, and for funds around 25% Bitcoin allocation. In the next 6 to 12 months, we will likely see a lot more large allocations from large institutional accounts, as these allocations will be permanent. We may also see significant purchasing of other crypto assets, but I would think BTC gets the lion's share. So this dip down that we saw, first and foremost, guys, one of the things there's always a good argument about reaccumulation and distribution. And we've gone over this many times, that one of the most disturbing factors is that, the average retail investor gets in late. Let's say they're lucky, they even got in at 30 grand, they're like up double, right? But if you've been following our channel for quite some time, or over the years, most of our key entries here were made between the $7,000 to $9,000 area. And that goes across the board, whether it's SRM, SNX, Cardano, actually it's a little late on Cardano, Matic, Fetch, Seller, One, a bunch of our plays that have done over 100x. These were all made between May and September, effectively. So we have a lot of room for buffer. So there's no worry for me here. Now, one of the other things we talked about was the potential for reaccumulation after decline as well, which is not necessarily a bearish signal, but it could be a temporary bearish signal. There's a very easy argument to say, as we had gone over, what was it, right here on April 12th, that we could revisit this $36,000 area. When Tesla was buying around $1.6 billion of Bitcoin, it was in this reaccumulation cycle here. Now, part of one of the interesting moments is that, let's kind of delete all this stuff. Let's just start over. And one of the things, this is why we'll try to do maybe a bit more round tables with some people, is that, one of the downsides is that because reaccumulation and distribution can appear so similar, the argument here is that, okay, well, are we witnessing a rounded top effectively? And are we going to come down lower to around the $35,000 to $36,000? And are we going to see a reaccumulation after decline? Effectively, if we end the bull market now, Bitcoin's dead, and that's not going to happen. So even if we do see some temporary downside, it will be very, very limited in its scope, approximately another 30% in downside at most, even if we get that. And that's likely the washing out of retail hands and again, like I said, I took profits from Bitcoin around 56 to 58,000. I sold a few Bitcoins just to cover our monthly expenses for the next 3 to 5 years. It's not an insignificant amount of capital. And we can also see that by looking at some of this Glassnode data. Now, I'm not including myself in the ownership of the 1,000 plus Bitcoin area, but we can definitely see that those wallets have been decreasing since February, as you saw moves from basically 6,000 to 30,000 is a huge positive, right? So any good trader, any good investor looks at 2 to 5x and goes, well, that was fantastic, right? The traditional markets do not offer us these highly lucrative returns. So on average, reducing risk as we get up higher is extremely important. Now, from a mental sentiment, I bought more Bitcoin last night. And if it goes down, I will accumulate a lot more. I'll basically rebuy back all the positions that I sold, just because it makes sense at this point. So we're going to go over a few other things in the market, but one of the ones that I wanted to go over was more of this address. So although the accounts with 1,000 Bitcoins have decreased, the accounts with over 10,000 has actually increased this weekend. So the last 2 days, the accounts that hold over 10,000 Bitcoin has increased by like 2 to 3 accounts, right? So it's not an insignificant amount of capital. When you have a few accounts selling the 10,000, let's see how many we lost here, from 200 to 2,200 to 2,100. So we lost around 100 people that have 1,000 Bitcoin in each of their accounts overall, right? We can also look at the accounts that have over 100 Bitcoin, and that massively increased on the 5th, and then massively decreased. And again, this could be an artifact of a few things. 100 Bitcoin is not necessarily a significant amount of money. On the 1,000 Bitcoin accounts, yes, that is a significant amount of capital, no matter how you look at it. And we're basically back to the accounts level that we were in June. So we do not see large-scale accumulation in the 1,000 plus Bitcoin accounts. And generally, these bigger players are going to be looking for better prices. So we know, well, let's go over this conversation again as well, because I think it's hyper important. Let's go back to our favorites. We will look at, actually, there's our favorites. one of the things that we've been using is, well, first off, the stock to flow deflection model. Let's go over this as a conversation. We are at one of the lowest points Bitcoin has been in terms of the network value to transactions. So one of the things you have to remember is that most of the open supply comes from miners, right? They're producing thousands of Bitcoin per day, and they have not been selling at all. So we've gone over this in our private group. Let's go back to the trade setups. Let's look at this one here. Where's the, oh yes, here. It's for more data from Glassnode. So as you can see from April onwards, the miners have been increasing their position by around 2,000 to 5,000 Bitcoin per day. And there's a reason for that. It's because actually right now for them to sell it, they would be selling it at a loss. And this is, again, important to remember for a few reasons, because for the miners create most of the on-chain value at the moment, right? So we're going to use one more look here, exchange balance percent. So we've seen kind of the first little turnaround in the amount of Bitcoin that there is on the coming onto the open exchanges in the last, let's say, again, since April 13th. There's more been, let's see, approximately, at the low, we were at 12.9%, and at the high now we're at 13.2%. So we've increased the amount of open liquidity by around 0.3%, we'll say, just on average, we'll round up. Now, again, what's important to remember here is that this is not coming from miners, and they're the large scale producers. And when we know we've been decreasing the amount of open supply basically since March, a little turnaround like this is to be expected. You know, again, a big part of the question that we're going to be looking at is what I think on the downside would be a reaccumulation after decline. And we've gone over that before, that we could see a quick dip down to around 32,000. We would reaccumulate in that area. It could even potentially look like a much larger trading range where you are now effectively just seeing your primary support here, your buying climax here. It would be a big shakeout down to 31,000, and then we would see a very quick rally, very fast rally upwards. Now, until we start to really negate this red line that I've been following as what I believe is our rising gradient bottom, which we have not yet, I'm not leaning bearish, just because there's no open supply. So where are they going to get it from? So again, we just want to try to find as much data as possible. And we know that even though we've seen this kind of uptick, the first big uptick, there's a high probability that these are from much smaller wallets. Now, again, because the larger wallets have been decreasing basically since February, this could be viewed as a type of, again, a distribution event. We've gone over that with Grayscale holdings. Pretty much every day since February, Grayscale has been reducing its holdings effectively. So we'll go back here. We'll look at the bar chart instead, as it gives us a little bit more clarity. So here in December, Grayscale added approximately 100 or 60,000 Bitcoin to their portfolio. And since then, they've been decreasing it by about 100 Bitcoin per day on average. And yesterday was one of their lowest drops of only like 30 Bitcoin that they sold. You know, and again, remember, if you've been here long enough and you got here at the right time, you should generally be decreasing your holdings and reducing risk. More and more frequently when I see highs, I usually take a few percent off the table just to have cash reserves. Now, I don't generally go over that too much because everyone's managing a different type of portfolio. Their risk profile is vastly different. And when they entered is vastly different. If you're a retail investor and you can't sleep at night and you entered at like $40,000, you should probably be always looking at reducing your risk so you can sleep properly. You know, the majority of the Bear family showed up at the very beginning of the bull market and has made some amazing entries. So everything we're looking at right now, the risk to reward relationship is significantly higher. We're basically dead center in the middle of the bull market. So how do we want to take a focus on this particular ideal? You know, right now we've got a lot of interesting setups. So let's take a little bit of a closer look at Bitcoin here on some of these smaller time frames, and we'll use a little bit more of our intermediary data. So, you know, we have actually not seen a sell signal in this range, technically speaking, which is interesting. We've only seen buy signals. So just as an example, we'll use this. This is a kind of ATR. It shows a few of like oversold. It mixes a few signals together. I realize it's kind of messy. But the previous sell signals we had were back in February. We've not had a sell signal since then, and we just had 2 buy signals and what looks to be a third buy signal effectively. And again, this is basically represents a big dip below the Bollinger Bands here as well. So the fact that we didn't see a sell signal here, and we talked about this as well, the amount of supply coming into the market on the upthrust did not match that of a distributional event. Now, one of the things we had talked about in our previous videos, and I'll go over this again, is this moment back here. So I'll clean this chart up and we'll make an analog, a smaller analog at least, I feel. So back here, when Bitcoin was in August, this was Bitcoin August, we saw this moment, and this is effectively a distributional top, right? But a very short-term distributional top. We couldn't get above the trading range again, and we fell into a reaccumulation after decline, and then we went extraordinarily bullish afterwards. It's probable that we could see that. The probability of that is going to increase if we cannot close above the red lines that we were just previously looking at. But this is of a potential, right? That what we're seeing right now was a intermediary distribution. We drop down to 30,000. We create a reaccumulation after decline before going to $120,000 or $150,000. And the big players like to do this. You have to remember that people that have tens of thousands of Bitcoin can move the market. Elon Musk with one tweet can move the market because there's very little supply in the market right now. So these red lines represent what I believe to be a rising gradient bottom at the moment. Now, again, this could be invalidated. So right now, what I usually like to do is wait for reprieve from these big drops. So when you see a big drop like this, you usually want to wait for a rally first. So we talked about this $52,000 to $54,000 area. We're starting to close back above the 50,000. It would be what we would like to see again is a move back above 59,000 at this point to basically validate our test. Some of you guys asked me questions about does this wick invalidate the spring? No, not necessarily. Basically, the shakeout of retail investors here can easily move that spring down. You're also talking about people who opened longs. We could go over here and look at the perpetual funding rates as well. So let's do that. Futures perpetual funding rate. Is this all exchanges? Let's go all exchanges. And let's look at just FTX because I'm a big fan of FTX. So we will remove everybody but FTX for the moment. Maybe we can leave Binance in there just as kind of a helpful idea. And we'll leave the mean in there as well. So which is the average of the two that we're looking at. So here, look at this. The funding rate has actually gone negative. So that means if you're holding a long position, you're getting paid right now, which is fantastic. So anyone holding like a 1x long position on FTX is making like almost 0.05%, which is not insignificant. So one of the things we like to do here is use this. Let's go linear for now, actually, as well on this chart. So the mean is actually dropped down below. So the funding rate is actually currently negative. We haven't seen a negative funding rate since April 25th. So if we go back and look at our chart here, the last time we saw a negative funding rate was February, March, April 25th. Yeah, here. So both times we've seen negative funding rates have been on these big drops, where you basically are getting paid to hold a long position effectively. So what does that mean? You know, this is usually a good reset moment for the markets. Let's give ourselves a little bit more data here, I think, to just make the picture clearer. So here we saw a big peak out of the funding rate. And we should probably be looking at this on a day-over-day basis with you guys as well. See here, May 5th, look at this big peak out on Binance. That's usually a sign of an intermediary top, and that's what we see here too. May 5th, a big peak out in terms of the funding rate. Everyone's going long Bitcoin. Someone who's never used leverage before is going long here, right? It's a highly risky scenario in the middle of the point of control. Yesterday was a big moment. Obviously, we could not get back above the point of control, and we dropped back down based off Elon Musk's tweets. And Elon has a lot of sway. He has a lot of, in the court of public opinion, he can move mountains, apparently, to some degree. So keeping an eye on this keeping an eye on his Twitter account is probably important. Like, we need a bot to, it's like, because they're almost identical, right? The drop happened. Now, that drop looked like it was going to happen regardless, but he definitely exacerbated that cause and effect. It's likely that we wouldn't have seen such a big wick down had he not tweeted, but he tweeted at like the perfect time too, right? So this is the thing that we talk about where news is kind of irrelevant. The only reason I brought it up yesterday is because he's such a big voice, it's really easy to scare people, right? It's especially the retail investor. And when we know there's such a limited supply in the markets by the data that we're looking at, it's very easy to drop the market significantly based off a tweet, which is, in itself should probably worry people, I guess. But here we go. We've seen this massive rate in funding drops. So what I'm looking for is reprieve or like breathing room. So if we go in on the 45-minute and we start to take a closer look, let's get rid of our drawings here and just look at some of the more intermediary data. We've just started to have our first close above our moving averages. Now, this is where we want to keep a really close eye on it, right? So we're definitely going to come back to hit the $52,000 area. This is where we talked about in our previous videos that was an important area to hold support of, even though we've dropped below that. If we cannot get above the Bollinger Band here on the 45 minutes and on the 1 hour, I guess even on the 4 hour, you're probably going to see the same thing, almost identical, around that $52,000 area. That could be the sign that we're going to move into a reaccumulation after decline. So I do not believe the bull market is over, even if we do have a quick dip to $30,000. It will get bought up so fast. The accounts that hold over 1,000 Bitcoin will increase probably dramatically. So with that in mind, let's go over a few of the other plays and areas as well. So taking a look at Ethereum, Ethereum here on let's go back to the 4 hour, just give us a little bit more clarity in data. So as soon as we started to break the Bollinger Band, we fell right to the top area of our previous, let's call this our primary support at the moment. Just like this is likely our primary support here. So PS, bam. And then this was our buying climax of what will probably become a new trading range for Ethereum too. So there's our buying climax. Now, a big part of the question is going to be, is this distribution, right? Are we at a top? That's what everyone's going to be wondering over the next week or two. And again, that's going to shake out retail hands. Elon already said clearly we're not going to sell any more of our Bitcoin until we fix it, right? That's what he said. So there's probably some other conversations that will hopefully take place. People like Jack Dorsey, Cathie Wood from ARK have clearly stated many times over. And this was kind of a funny one too. Elon Musk's memory might be a little short on some of this, but let's take a look at my Twitter here. For those of you that do not follow me, follow us on Twitter. I want to go over a tweet that we shared. This was okay. So this was April 12th, or sorry, April 21st. Bitcoin incentivizes renewable energy and Square Crypto. So Square and ARK Invest. Again, ARK is frigging genius. Cathie Wood is literally the only person I ever listened to about any market sentiments. I ignore everybody else. Anybody else that has a YouTube channel, I basically don't listen to. Now, that could mean, hey, don't listen to Tio either. Well, sure. I love Cathie Wood. The fundamentals of the market are extremely important. And we'll go over some of those today because today's crypto coffee session will be basically a longer play. So here they're saying, look, this is actually going to help drive renewable energy. Even Michael Saylor put out a great video this morning about why that's the case and how Bitcoin actually incentivizes more renewable energies because there's like there's usually congestion periods and lack of congestion periods where renewable energy is basically worthless because they're not able to sell it. Bitcoin then incentivizes a reason to mine. So it incentivizes the reason to start using more renewable resources. Then look at this. Bitcoin incentivizes renewable energy. And Elon Musk goes, true. Less than a month later. Wait, have you been smoking on Joe Rogan's show while we were not watching, Elon? Jesus Christ. That was not 20 days it took for you to forget that you agreed with this idea. Funny stuff. So what does this mean? Okay, well, again, there's a huge incentive value to continue mining Bitcoin effectively, right? So let's go across the board here and look. We're still in an area of weakness. We haven't seen any reprieve on the 4 hour yet. And on the 6 hour too, you can see that we will probably come back down to around $3,500 Ethereum, probably on the candle. And even Bitcoin here will probably actually try to build support around this $49,000 area for the next, let's say, 24 hours. And again, we could see a slip down to 40K, no problem. If we bring back our regular charts here, this rising gradient bottom that I was kind of insinuating into, if we remove that, you know, this is where it looks a bit more bearish, right? This is effectively the scenario where we do see what I would believe to be a reaccumulation after decline with a dip down to potentially $32,000. Now, that's not unheard of. You know, in the 2017 cycle, we saw multiple 40 to 50% drops. It was quite frequent. This would be the first. So this is not a huge cause of concern for me. But let's go over the rest of the market and just kind of make some quick conjecture after, you know, we've already looked at Ethereum. We're going to easily come down and close into this $3,500 area, probably with volume. But let's take a look at SRM. Again, closing below the band, but we're in a nice falling channel here as well. So that was to be basically expected at this point. But we're starting to see some strength in other areas of the market. Synthetics, right? Synthetics actually jumped right back above and gained more strength during that Bitcoin drop, and not an insignificant amount either. You're talking about a 15% gain for synthetics over that drop, right? And we're now closing above the point of control here. There's other areas too that are showing that level of or that type of bullishness, which is that, and this is, again, this is where these can become deceiving, is that, wait, is this the upthrust of just before we see distribution? You know, Cardano is now broken into new all-time highs since that Bitcoin drop. Aave as well, creating, again, what's either going to be an SOS or a potential distributional pattern. Now, I suspect it's an SOS. The DeFi sector is extraordinarily undervalued still. It's probably worth trillions more than that we're seeing today. So keep that in mind. They're going to replace all the banks. All that old financial infrastructure, in my opinion, will be replaced by DeFi. So a big part of the question is, right, are these distributional moments? And this is always the difficult part with these reaccumulations. Well, first off, if you're late to the market, it's the risk to reward relationship is significantly skewed. The risk is high right now. Entering positions is not always like, I'm not taking a $280,000 position in Aave today. Now, maybe the other day that would have been not such a bad idea because you had a lot of room for upside still at 100% upside, basically. Right? And again, not an insignificant amount. And here's what could be considered the worrying part. And we've gone over this. And we just don't have the data yet, is that there's a significant amount of supply that came in for a fairly limited price spread. Now, SOSs do that. We've seen SOSs do that before. Same with Matic. Let's clean this chart up a little bit, get rid of our bands. Actually, let's keep the band for a minute. So here with Matic, let's get rid of the drawing. So here's our general potential reaccumulation, our first sign of strength, break back down into the bar, our secondary sign of strength, and now we're closing right up around the area of our Bollinger Band as well. So we're kind of right in the middle of the area. And again, the argument here that would be bearish is all the supply that came in to make such a limited price spread, right? And this is the downside, is that we have to wait, generally speaking, to see further closes before we're like, okay, this is done. I just don't feel like the bull market is over. Like you shouldn't use intuition to trade, but there's a few across the board where we're seeing what are potentially these strong reaccumulation patterns moving forward. Let's open this up here and take a look at some of the rest of our charts. Actually, let's just go to CoinGecko. Maybe that will give us a bit of a broader view. So in general, we had around $200 billion, at least, of paper gains wiped off the market yesterday. Now, I suspect that this market cap is highly exacerbated, and there's a few reasons for it. There are a bunch of tokens that are way overvalued, and this door on the outside is very thin. That's why these markets drop so quickly, is when everyone tries to close out a position, the prices fall dramatically, right? There's like almost no reprieve because it's like everyone trying to run for the fire exit at the same time. There's just not enough liquidity there to keep the market up on any particular area. You know, and again, if you're new to these markets, the risk is we're right in the frigging middle of the market. Like you're gonna want to be a little bit more patient and see what Bitcoin does. Like a clear close below the trading range here could be again a continuation of another 20 to 30% drop to give us that the first 50% drop we've seen in Bitcoin. Basically since the bull market started, and that's not, again, it's not unheard of. It would be probably welcomed, and it would be a beautiful analog of what we saw back in August, which is a rounded top and then boom, back down to the previous area of support and a reaccumulation after decline. And this would likely happen very quickly. This would not be like a long-lived process, right? So because I reduced my risk and covered my capital here, I'm not going to be messing around by trying to like jump out of Bitcoin in the last few days. Like I already reduced that risk off right before that last drop came in, just in case we were wrong about this being a potential distribution, you know. And I guess I get in some light, you know, maybe this was a distribution the entire time, but it would be temporary. Again, we just didn't see the supply coming up into the upthrust that would make me think, oh yeah, this is the end of the bull market. Generally, these upthrusts are like huge amounts of supply coming into the market on the buy side, and it's like the finality. And that's like what we see as a blow off top is not always recognized in the architecture. It's usually in the supply signature itself. So the supply signature itself just does not say bearish yet. Now, the amount of selling that's taken place here is significant, right? This is mostly sell signature, sell, signature, sell signature, sell signature, and very limited buy signatures coming in comparison with what we saw back in January through February. But also remember, you had Grayscale increase their holdings by tens of thousands of Bitcoin. Again, the big argument is that the supply. Well, and let's just quickly go through. You've got Ethereum that regained around 10%. It's back at 3,800. Again, I think it's going to come back down to 3,500. Cardano's up 23% in the last 7 days, up 2.5% for the day. But again, almost all red, right? When Bitcoin moves, everything goes down because that fire exit is so thin. And most of this is kind of BS. Like for instance, let's take a look here. Pancake swap. This current like evaluation is probably oversold now, because especially look at the FTT token. There's no way FTT token is worth less than Pancake Swap. So there's a fair amount of like over evaluation in this market, and it'd be nice to see it wiped. It says SafeMoon too. There's no way SafeMoon has anywhere near the equivalent of the FTX token. or that it's worth more than that Avalanche. This is just entirely this is 24-hour trading volume. There's no way SafeMoon is worth more than Avalanche. It's just not true, right? So anyways, we'll keep that in mind. That when you see these mispriced evaluations, it's kind of a nice balancing of the market. Avalanche is definitely worth more than SafeMoon at the end of the day, and that's important to remember. So, could we see a quick drop down to 32,000? Yeah, we've gone over that. Do I think it's the end of the bull market? No, we just don't see the supply signature for it, in my opinion. Again, I could be wrong, but we just, at this moment, that normally the upthrust would be categorized by a massive amount of supply on the upside first before the massive distribution came in, and that's not what we're seeing. So could we see, again, this reaccumulation after decline? This is becoming more probable now before we would jump up and go. So, and we've seen that before. We've seen these quick distributional patterns that go very quickly into a reaccumulation after decline, and then before you know it, they're on their way to much higher levels. And we saw that with Bitcoin, right? Say you're new to the Wyckoff method, and we're at the beginning of the bull market here, and you know, let's pretend it's back here, right? Let's pretend this is the new high for Bitcoin. We're like, oh my God, look at Bitcoin, it's up at $60,000. You know, here, yeah, looks like a distributional range, right? But look how temporary it was. We saw this upside. We couldn't get back above. Boom, it slammed down, and then a reaccumulation after decline. So this little area here, I think, it is becoming more probable that that's what we're witnessing now. And it's likely just to get rid of all the final retail hands that are in the market before we go higher. So I'm not particularly worried. Again, like I said, I removed risk. If you're new to these markets, if you're late to the game, try to focus more on an investing strategy than a trading strategy. This is a good time to buy. I bought more Bitcoin this morning, basically, so I'm not particularly concerned. Again, if we see it come down lower, I will accumulate more. But right now, being in the middle of the market, this is not a time to be opening like leveraged positions. These are all spot buys. I'm not opening anything on a long position here. At least a leverage long, maybe spot buys, reduce the risk. You can hold for years and still come out to the positive if you're patient. But our next area of support is around 36 to 31,000. But I'm going to wait for a little bit of reprieve. It usually would give us something like this, where if we can't get back above 54,000, then we're coming lower. If we jump back above 56, 58,000, we'll continue higher. But we're kind of right in that middle moment. So got to keep a close eye on the market. But I do suspect we see some reprieve. So if you hadn't yet reduced risk, as I have back here, this may be a place for you to do that, depending on when you entered your positions. Anyways, maybe we'll go over a few thoughts and questions. We've got 420 people on the live stream right now. Please give us a thumbs up if you like this content. If you're new to the channel, please go down and subscribe to all of our social media channels in the links below, whether it's Twitter, Instagram, or the rest. We will be happy to provide more valuable content for each of you guys as we go. So please do follow us on those other channels, just because it's fun for me to interact with the rest of the Bear family in other places. So I'm just going to quickly go over and get my secondary screen here set up so that I can take a look at some of your guys' thoughts and questions in the meantime here. So we'll just put Bitcoin back on the screen for now as well. Oh, okay, let's see here. Let's take a look at a few of your thoughts and questions. Which project to invest in this current situation? Today, I invested in Mercurial. You can find the links and instructions to that by going to our Twitter page. I really like what FTX and Solana is building to participate in the Mercurial. Actually, let's just pin this to the top of the page so it's easier to find for everyone. Let's see here. I'll pin it to the top of the page. There we go. Pin tweet. Do I have to unpin tweet first? Maybe I have to unpin my other tweet. So I'm investing into Mercurial today via their IDO on FTX. I believe you'd already had to have FTX tokens staked. If not, they will be going through other areas as well. So Mercurial Finance. Let's see here. Here's their light paper. It's a great read. Yes, here we go. Did I retweet this yet? Okay, I'll retweet this one, and then we'll post this. They will be launching on other, I think Radium and two others as well. You have to double check on that one. But Mercurial is the only investment I'm adding to right now. I like these early ideas, and I usually try to get into them and just wait. It's generally one of my favorite things to do, is kind of venture capital, early seed stage style stuff, or close to seed stage style stuff. Anyways, we'll go back to our charts here. So that's the only investment I'm making at the moment. Cool. Nice. Thanks for all the support, guys. What about the Pi indicator top we reached a few days ago? Yeah, so cycle indicators like Pi continue to go up higher as we move forward. So even though we reached the top in the Pi indicator a couple of days ago, as we go forward in time, it continues to rise, right? So it's not a set place. And again, remember that for Bitcoin to remain functioning, basically at this point, we have to maintain this stock to flow deflection model. Otherwise, the miners will go out of business. And that's not a bad thing. It's not a bad thing to kind of flush out the business model. But as you can see right now, it is cheaper to buy Bitcoin and in the range of the cheapest to buy Bitcoin at these places, right? So if you look back in the history of Bitcoin, you know, there's some very key moments where once you're in the red, these are kind of like take profit moments, right? Bitcoin at 40,000, Bitcoin at 56,000. So even where we are today, effectively is not a bad profit point if you were entering anywhere between our early days of March to August, effectively. Now, the miners, again, you have to remember, are a functioning business model. So this is the cheapest it's been. So the miners are not going to sell Bitcoin. So where's it going to come from? It has to come from the open market. And that's generally retail investors, right? Tesla's not selling their Bitcoin. MicroStrategies is not selling their Bitcoin. So where's that Bitcoin coming from? It's coming from probably retail investors, generally speaking. Matic is not bigger than Avalanche. That's for damn sure. Whoever posted that, you have done very little study on technology to say that. You're not even close. Avalanche's technology is basically bar none at this moment. It is almost an evolution of blockchain in general. I suggest you do more homework on that one. It's a game changer. They could be better at marketing, I guess, but that's about it. Can you see DOT? Yeah, DOT was in another, a very similar situation where what we're witnessing is, let's go back to DOT. Bam. Yeah, so DOT is still in, DOT's still in. Wow. And here, here's something really interesting, guys. Look at this. Look at the amount of sell pressure that's come in and how limited the downside was, especially on the daily. The fact that that massive amount of sell pressure was only pushed us down and we're still back above the POC. That's probably quite bullish, and now it's like a battle of the blockchain type mentality. So the fact that we're seeing stuff like this, where there's a massive amount of sell pressure and very limited downside, that's generally a bullish indicator, right? So we're nice to see a sign of strength in DOT, but we don't have that yet. Any reprieve that we've seen in these right now, up like 20%. Again, with Aave, you've got Aave up 100% since April 24th. Oh, 74% since April 24th. And you actually see that across the board. Even with the SRM play that we had, we were up over 100% since our entries at around $6. So if you're in the private group, we took most of our entries around the $6 to $7 area. We were up 100%, 130%. Now we've retraced a bunch of that, and we'll probably come down to test the top of the trading range. Let's clean this up a little bit. And again, this is what we're looking at. We're looking at the growth of the whole market right now, and that's why it's a little bit hard to be exact. Is that, here's our sign of strength. And we're seeing what turned into distribution. We'll probably come back almost all the way down to $7.50. And then this is going to be a key moment is what happens. We're probably going to get stubbed up here. If Bitcoin drops down to 30 grand, it's going to drop Serum down to like $7. Well, what would it do to DOT? And I think it's a big part of the question we want to go over is that this is a much more valuable ecosystem than it was in 2017. And, it doesn't look like the bull market is over. So any downside here in Bitcoin, well, what happens to the rest of the market, I think, is one of the most important questions. And remembering that a lot of this value, like a market cap of around 2 trillion, is fake. There's no real. It's not real. It's totally bullshit, basically. And we've gone over that a few times before as well. Why that is. What's your opinions on Luna? I don't have any. 1 inch I'll try to do a little later, or I could look at it quickly. Again, we're just seeing a lot of these reaccumulation or potentially distribution patterns. And that's the big kicker. Reaccumulation or distribution? Well, we saw our first SOS, and now we're seeing the backup part of this SOS. All right. So we're going to want to keep a close eye on these because this is going to tell us Bitcoin's story as well. Look, Rook has been quite powerful. Rook as well, since it's the drop off of its first SOS, it's back up, and now where we are today is up still 50%. So we see strength in the rest of the market, and we see strength in 1 inch after into its backup. But again, part of the question is how much strength is going to come into the market. Bitcoin is our central collateral layer. And again, look at Cardano. Cardano is up at a new all-time high right now, right? So it's not unheard of. It's not illogical to think that we're still like dead square center in the bull market when you have new all-time highs being produced. Now that could be a worrying sign. I remember back in 2017 as well, when Bitcoin dropped, we saw the final all-time highs for other tokens. So we will be here day over day for the next, let's say 3 to 5 days, while we really hash out where we are in the market. Because in 2017, when we saw Bitcoin produce an all-time high, and then Ethereum produced the all-time high as Bitcoin was going down, and then as Ethereum started to drop, some of the other altcoins made new all-time highs, and then that was the end of the bull market effectively. So we could see this kind of sloshing between Bitcoin into Cardano, and then the market fail. Like maybe the bull market is over, right? We can't take it off the table. It's not totally off the table, although I just don't see that at the moment. Yeah, hit that thumbs up, guys. Tell us you like the content we're creating. Avalanche versus Algorand. Algorand's good, it's fast, but Avalanche just brings something sweet to the table. I have Emin Gun or Eamon Gun. I don't know how to pronounce his name properly. I'll ask him to make sure I get it somewhat right on the show tomorrow. So I'm very excited to have Emin from Avalanche, the founder there, on the show to help explain why this is such a revolutionary technology and what it can bring to the table. I think Avalanche is still generally undervalued and overlooked, which are usually my favorite spots. Captain Crypto says Tesla and Algorand have the same address. I don't know that that's true. David saying Avalanche breaks composability, which means lots of DeFi can't run. That's not true. They have the EVM. You can run all the Ethereum contracts on Avalanche as well. And the double spend confirmed by Emin on Twitter, I would have to double check that. That would be something new I hadn't seen. Let's see here. See what this confirmed. I hate when people say that. I love his name, Elite Hacksaw. I haven't seen that since I was like 12 years old. I love it. Avalanche is green. Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah, I don't think there's a double spend. I don't think there was a double spend. Sounds like you've got something wrong. But I'll ask him tomorrow. Because if you says he confirmed it, every time someone says confirmed on something, I think it just sounds like BS in my mind. I've been here long enough to kind of spot BS right out the gate. It usually sounds like confirmed. Bull market confirmed. Bear market confirmed. That's usually what it sounds like. It's true. Check for yourself. Okay, Algorand's address. One of my friends works with Algorand. Algorand address. I guess we should probably go to Crunchbase. That's just for fun. We'll spend a moment looking at that contact. I doubt they showed on their website here. Yeah, let's see. I get Algorand. Boston, Massachusetts. And then, yeah, it's, I don't know how to find their address here. Let's see, for-profit company, company details. Yeah, it's probably unimportant. Although they are in Boston, Massachusetts, that we can see for sure. And this is probably, as well, guys, this is like if you're looking at addresses that are similar, you're probably looking at like corporate shells more than anything. Like you can find like thousands of businesses that have the same address that have nothing to do with each other because of how corporations are formed. So keep that in mind. It's totally irrelevant. $126 million in funding. I can't seem to find their address, but anyways, keep that in mind that often addresses will have tons of overlapping data because of the way corporations are formed. So it's generally irrelevant. Do a simple Google search. I hate when people say shit like that. No, we did. It's like, it's not how it works here. Look, we'll do it again. Watch. Algorand address. Simple Google search. Nope, not there. Such foolish people. anyways, we'll leave it at that. Again, I feel fairly confident that if you're looking at a similar address, it's because of the way corporate shells are created, and that is no way to be conflated that they have anything to do with each other. You can probably find like 1,000 other companies that have the same address. If it dips to 30K, what would convince you the bull market is still intact? Because if it goes, if then the miners would all go out of business, and the system would basically collapse, and then the entire crypto sector would have to be reevaluated. So, yeah, that's what convinces me it's in a bull market still. I don't know where the supply is going to come from. How many people you think are going to sell? Yeah, guys, also note that we are definitely near the end of the bull market. That's for damn sure. Like when you hear everybody getting in, that means we're near the end of the bull market for sure. We've been saying that time and time again. I guess one of the other ways to do is like a Google search. What is it? Is it Search Console or no? It's not the Search Console. That's for SEO. Google Trends. That's another way to. That's a fun way to kind of look at it. Google Trends. Let's take a look at Bitcoin. And let's add Dogecoin too. Okay, so when Dogecoin is effectively more popular than Bitcoin in the search terms, that means retail still isn't paying attention to it yet. You have to remember that because Bitcoin's price is so high, most people don't think that they can buy or own a Bitcoin, and Dogecoin should not be searched more than Bitcoin. Let's go Ethereum as well. Wow. Ethereum is actually still very low on the search console itself too, considering. Let's add, let's see, another one. What's another one? XRP for fun. Just to get some rough general data. Yeah, so Dogecoin is basically searched more than Bitcoin or Ethereum still. I don't think that the bull market is over for Bitcoin. I just think that the retail and the sector have showed up because of TikTok videos buying the wrong thing. So we welcome them in all of their nonsense to come play. But I don't think that again, if we break below, you ruin the mining profitability. And that's where most of the open supply comes from right now. I just don't see it happening. And again, Cardano, new all-time high right now. You know, again, synthetics still holding above the POC. This massive amount of supply coming in for Ethereum still holding quite strong. I want to wait to see some reprieve here on at least the 4 or 1 hour. Yeah, again, we could see a quick dip down here to 40,000. So we'll keep an eye on it. What we'll do is we'll come back. We'll be live this evening. I've got a dinner with 2 beautiful women this evening. They're inviting me over to go eat with them, so I'm super excited. Just be patient, everyone. Again, I highly suggest spending time reading, doing your homework. It makes a huge difference. Thank you all for joining us in today's episode. Was a Tiho's Coffee with Crypto moment. The next few days, we're going to bring on a few of our guests to help do some roundtable conversations, just so it's not always me chatting. I've got some great friends to help fill out, so there'll be 4 of us chatting together. Should be great. I appreciate all of your guys' support, and we'll see you again on the next episode.